more than 50% of exonerations from prison are black people. Like, a black person is more likely than any other race to be tried for a crime that they did not commit, and then to be released from prison for a crime that they did not commit.
That's not totally true. Let's pretend that it is. It's because they're in front of the justice system more because of the high crime. But let's try to find some agreement.
I'm talking percentages of exonerations. Like, they're...
No, it's because they're in the system more, though. It's because you have more cases. But anyway, let's pretend that's true. Let's pretend the system's totally racist.
Actually, there's more white people in the system because white people make up like what? Like
no, for sure.
So you're just incorrect there, right? Like you're doing to me.
But they don't commit as many crimes.
Okay, so let's be cordial. Let's be cordial.
You're not being, so let's calm down a little bit, okay?
You're not being.
Am I being sweet to this guy?
Okay.
All right. Let me ask you one question in closing, though. If you could say to Black America, here is more money, more stuff, more housing, or more fathers, which one would you choose?
More funding. I don't think, because fathers, I think that you need to solve the problem from the bottom. I don't think you can just plant.
Hey, my love. So you're welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, BB Harry Frozen, and I'm back again for another reaction video. So in today's video, we're going to be reacting to Charlie. Charlie destroys race baiting student with fat and logic. Charlie Cake destroys race baiting student with fat and logic. I can't wait for us to watch this. This is going to be a heated one. It's going to be very intriguing and overwhelming. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell. Without further ado, let's get right into this video.
Yeah, so last year you said something about DEI, unqualified black pilots. You see a pilot on a black pilot. Don't you think it was an irresponsible statement suggesting that maybe these pilots aren't qualified or unqualified?
Irresponsible.
But I'll tell you exactly what I said and why I said it.
Okay, go ahead.
I said, the pretext, I went through a whole windup. I said United Airlines is saying that they want 40% of all their pilots to be people of color or women. We have learned that we have relaxed standards anytime that we try to reach racial quotas. Anytime we reach racial quotas, we relax the standards. Standards for air traffic control, professors, or college admissions. Therefore, when it comes to pilots or surgeons, if I see somebody who is black, as I said on the show, I'm going to hope that person is qualified. That's what I said, which of course is legitimate, because they're begging the question, we're not hiring based on merit anymore. We're hiring based on race. So when you see a black pilot, you wonder, boy, is that person there because they earned it or because they were placed there? That's what DEI does. It makes you ask questions you otherwise would not ask.
So the airline industry is going to take an unqualified person just based off diversity.
Underqualified, not underqualified.
Unqualified, underqualified, whatever, uncertified, and put them in a cockpit and risk people's lives?
Those are two different things. Under and un are two different things. Of course, United Airlines will not take someone off the side of the street and put them into a pilot. But in order to reach a 40% goal, they might cut corners. They might accelerate the process in order to reach a goal. We know this through all sorts of DEI examinations and projects over the last 10 years. You have to choose in life. Either excellence or racial quotas will end up being the most important. And both cannot simultaneously exist. It's never happened before.
Okay, so when we talk about DEI, well, who benefits the most? Because black people really don't. It's only like maybe 3 to 4% of black people actually benefit from those programs. So who benefits the most?
I'm not sure your question. I mean, theoretically, if 40% of all pilots end up being black people or people of color.
But that's not. I actually looked it up. It's only like maybe about 6% of pilots
their
are black.
goal is 40%, right? That's the point. It's like that's actually a great point. So they wanted to go from 6% to 40%. And so you have to wonder, boy, you go from 6% to 40%, there's going to be a relaxing of standards.
Okay, I guess the way let me see if I can rephrase this. So essentially when you talk about DEI, affirmative action, or anything to that effect.
I'm against all of it, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that would be fine. The thing is that now it's actually, referenced as a slur against, essentially if you see a black person in a position or, minority or whatever, the assumption is that person is not qualified when literally, and, you have to be qualified in order to even to get in that position.
Well, so let's take college admissions. So this is a great example. At Harvard, we learned because of new revealed documents that black students were having test scores that were 30 to 35% lower than their white counterparts.
Okay.
And so, therefore, if you saw a black kid at Harvard, it's a fact that they were not having the same test standards as their white counterparts.
Still doesn't matter. The kid has to get through, he's got to get through the classes, do the tests, do all the research.
Well, they actually drop out at a greater rate, too. But the point being is just the idea that they were there, number one, took a spot from an otherwise qualified individual that might be white. and they were not there on the same merits. So what we want is the same rules for everybody.
You're making the assumption that they're not qualified in order to get in. In order to even get there,
It's not
be
the assumption,
considered.
it's the data. So for example, it's literally at Harvard, you had kids with perfect SAT scores, perfect ACT scores that were white.
So that makes a degree from Harvard worthless then.
Well, you're exactly
That's what
right. Yeah,
I'm talking
actually,
about.
Harvard's degree is becoming more worthless because it's more race-based than merit-based. You're exactly right.
Okay, now we talked enough about that. Okay, so in the past you've made statements about black privilege. So can you explain that to me and what it is? And
Yeah, of
how
course.
black
I mean,
people
it's
get over?
easier for a black person to get into college than a white person. You get with lower test scores. It's called affirmative action.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's been so college admissions has been affirmative action for college admissions has been struck down.
Thank you. Yeah.
So-
I'll give you another example. What percentage of TV commercials have black people versus white people?
I'm not sure about that, but white people are also in commercials. so I
About
don't-
40. Well, this is important. About 40 to 50% of all network TV commercials have a person of color right now. What percentage of America is a person of color?
at least for black people, I know we're about 13%.
Yeah, it's about 13% of the population, nearly half of all the TV commercials.
To commercial.
White people are still in the
Makes no
commercials?
sense.
Yes, but underrepresented as proportional, though. The point being, I can give you another example. Easier to get corporate jobs. There are entire departments that are dedicated to just try and expand racial quotas.
You know what would really have fixed this from the beginning had you not had all the. So why do we have DI in the first place? Because this is the problem that creates. So why was DI necessary in the first place? Why was DI necessary in the first place? Or at least the government thought it was necessary in the first place.
Why do I think that it was...
No, why would the government?
Do you want my well-intentioned explanation or the...
Right, whatever you got.
I mean, DEI was obviously about trying to destroy the excellence of the country and elevate racial tribal politics.
Okay, so
That
if
makes sense.
You don't have the racism, right? And then you'll need that program. So you eradicate the racism, and that eliminates the need for any kind of program.
No, but if you have excellence, you're going to find the
that
best...
tries to take people and put them in place because they're minorities.
You want the best in everything. So let me just ask a final question, okay? If you were about to board a United Airlines flight from Tallahassee to Atlanta, and you find out the airline pilot says, "Hey, everybody, I'm a pilot. I was hired because of diversity. Let's have a great flight." Would that make you feel good or not so good?
No, but I know he's still got to be qualified in order to
too.
fly that aircraft.
But he said, "I was hired because of diversity," and you're like...
You still got to meet the standards in order to get into the cockpit.
Well, again, we know because air traffic controllers and many others, they relax those standards. When you have a surgeon...
You're saying that, but look, you're not. It does not make sense. It's irresponsible. Not only to say that, but to actually put unqualified people in and risk lives.
But we know that's actually happening every day, and that's why it doesn't make sense. But racial quotas end up mattering more than excellence. When I go in for surgery, I want my surgeon to be the best surgeon, and here's where we can
I would
agree.
agree with that,
We
yes.
want a merit-based society, not a race-based society.
I say we should have started that way from the beginning, but at any rate, then the last thing, I don't want to hog the mic, but I'll just say
That's
this
fine.
last thing. So you talked about, black fathers, absentee and all this other stuff and everything else. I actually agree. Okay, more fathers in the home and everything else. That's wonderful stuff. The thing is that you also.
Welcome to Knoxville. I'm up here for one purpose. My buddy is a friend of yours. He lives up in White Pine, and he wants me to have this discussion with you because me and him had this discussion this weekend. What are your thoughts about reparations for black people specifically, and like black Americans specifically? What is your
Very much against.
Very much against. Can I ask why?
Well, first and foremost, I don't believe that we should ever pay monetary damages to people where nothing bad happened to them
Okay.
just because
Okay.
they are related to a group of people where something bad happened to them.
Okay.
True.
So
Because it separates the idea, let me just finish, and then I'll throw it back to you.
Absolutely.
Our justice system, when properly understood, is about individuals receiving justice, not tribes or groups receiving justice.
Also, I want to state that just because I am a black man, I do not speak for all black people. So I'm just this.
I like this
speaking
guy.
for-
You should give it up for him.
Just want to state that for the record. I'm speaking for myself. So all right. So definitely hear you on that. And even for me, when it comes to reparations, for me personally, I don't believe that it should be a check. I think that reparations can look like many different things, whether it's like investment in institutions, more like better schools, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. So my question to you is so since you are against reparations, would you say that we should be against? Would you be for outlawing inherited wealth? Does that make sense?
Well,
'Cause,
no, I'm not for outlawing
Okay,
that.
okay,
And
okay.
those are two different things.
Can
but
I
yes.
explain my point though? All right. So my point to that is that so what I hear for the argument against reparations is that black people today, obviously we weren't there, for slavery, segregation, all of that kind of stuff. So we've done nothing to deserve that because all the people who probably should have gotten it, actually not even probably who should have gotten it, are, you know, either long gone or whatever. Now there's still some who are still with us today, but that's a conversation for another day. But my point is that so inherited wealth is something that, you know, the great grandfather, whatever, is passed down. Homeboy who is here today did nothing to deserve that multi-billion-dollar business, but he gets it because of his bloodline. Correct? Is that how it is?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
how inheritance works, right?
Yeah, no, like Bronny James is going to get $1 billion.
Right? Yeah.
Bucks,
Oh, I mean, yeah. Sorry, great example. So what I'm saying is that like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that like, I believe that reparations in and of itself, one, I don't think that the argument is formed right, and two, I believe that, you know, it's kind of a reverse inheritance, if that makes sense, where it's like where it's like, you know, yes, black people's, like me personally, yes, I did not have to suffer through Jim Crow, slavery, or whatever, but all those choices that were made in those times have like gotten necessarily me to where I'm at now.
Got it. So let me tell you where we have a difference of opinion.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay? So we as conservatives tend to underemphasize this idea of many legacies of suffering, whereas people on the left, not saying you're on the left, but the other perspective.
Definitely not.
No, for sure. But that's fine. No, that's fine. Let's just say the other side of the argument tend to emphasize that you are stuck because of something that happened to you many generations prior. We believe, absent very unique circumstances in the United States of America, that is almost never true. For example, we think every individual should be judged by their own actions, their own character, and their agency. Now, let's play this out, though. You're acting as if, not you, but let's say the argument, because you're coming after this in a great way, there's been like no money sent Black America the last 60 years. We have spent over $25 trillion on Black America in 60 years, and Black America's poorer than before we started. We're talking about Medicaid, food stamps, we're talking about schools, public housing. The issue is not the amount of money. The issue has instead been a couple things. Number one, it's been the downfall of the Black family. And unfortunately,
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, the more money we've spent on this, we've seen the downfall of the Black family. Just some numbers super quick. Is that in 1964, right before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, 75% of Black youth had a dad around. Now it's 25%. So only 25%. So 1 in 4 kids have a dad around. Black dads are no longer a big part of young kids' life. It's a very big problem that has huge ramifications. Then finally, on the reparations argument, that comes into just more like concrete questions. Where do you draw the line? Who defines it? And also, why would you tax, for example, somebody like me? My ancestors fought on the Union side of the Civil War. So I got to go pay more money, even though my ancestors did the right thing. No offense if you guys fought for the Confederacy. That's not trying to, drum up any, it's all good. We're all Americans now. I'm not. Why should I have to then go pay for something that my ancestors did correctly? Finally, it's like, how do you prove it? Like. This is not your argument, but it's a hilarious contradiction. The very same people who tell you that voter ID is racist want all of a sudden Black America to prove that they're the descendants of slaves 7 generations ago. Like, let me go get my paperwork together. I thought it's racist to ask people for their paperwork. Anyway, the whole thing's crazy. But here's the more important thing that I think we can agree on. That we should have a opportunity colorblind compact. We need to have school choice in this country so kids can go to better schools and have more mobility. Number 2, reconstitute the Black family. And finally, this is one that you might agree on because you're not a liberal, is that we need to no longer import foreigners that are going to undercut the wages of workers of all races, especially Black Americans.
I agree.
And so what we've done is we imported Nicaraguans and Guatemalans to come take low-wage labor, and we didn't want to pay our own Americans those jobs. So final thoughts on those points.
Also, great points. I would say that I am with you for the idea of a colorblind society. I think it's a bit of a farce to say that colorblind society is something we should aspire to, but I think it's a farce to think that it doesn't exist, that race doesn't play a factor. I
totally agree.
Okay, and so
I will say it plays far less of a factor 10 years ago. It's playing more of a factor today.
Yes, I agree.
In a negative way.
Yes, I 100%. I mean, I think you had mentioned something about DEI like earlier, and I was like, for sure, like the way I agree with DEI in principle, but I think the way it's been instituted by our government and all the other institutions is completely wrong. So, because for me, it's not about seeing color; it's how you treat color. Does that make sense?
Everyone's going to see color. And
exactly,
you're right. And so it's an ideal that is admirable, being colorblind.
Right.
The problem with we were promised with the Civil Rights Act, we were promised a colorblind society. We now have a color-obsessed society. And
agree.
it's a breakdown of that promise. Instead, the country I grew up in, at least, was like, yeah, you're black, but it doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing. Instead, it's, are you a good person? How do you act? How do you treat other people? Are you a Christian? Like, what is your worldview? I want to get back to that. Of course, we're still going to see differences, but I want to de-emphasize them to a place where we look at each other as fellow human beings and fellow American citizens.
I agree.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely
man.
not.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
One more, can I get a hat from
Absolutely.
my buddy? Can I get a hat from my buddy? Appreciate it.
I'll get you two, right? Thank you, man.
Can I shake your hand, man? Appreciate you.
Right? So when segregation ended, right, black people, or when slavery ended, actually, black people were just forced wherever, right? So they had nowhere to go. And then there was laws put in place to put them into prison, and after... Fuck. Okay.
It's okay. No. What's your name?
Calm down.
Guys, what's your name?
Jackson.
It takes a lot of courage to come up here.
Yeah, no,
Let's
I
just
know.
take a deep breath. Okay, I'm not here to pick on you.
No, I
and
know. I need to get my
appreciate
thoughts
it.
together.
No, it's okay.
I
know that
knew
this
I
can be
was-
very intimidating getting in a crowd like this. So just take a deep breath. Let me make your argument. I'm going to make your argument for you, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's wrong. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the
Okay, I
argument
want
that
to
is
have
being made that
Charlie's
you
very
want to make
respectful.
is that there's legacies of injustice.
Yes.
And that those legacies impact one generation after the other. And when those things get handed down, you have what is a system or a systemic issue that isn't just isolated in 2024. So the argument that you're making is that what happened in 1954 does impact 2024 of decade after decade after decade. Let me tell you my response to that. Of course, there is some truth to that. However, every culture, every person in this audience can point to issues that families or generations prior had that we're able to overcome. So the question is, why is it that Black America is one of the only populations, that and Native American populations, that have not been able to overcome such evil, horrors, and injustices? Here's my perspective, and I want to hear what you have to say, is that the number one way to keep people out of poverty, lower the crime rate, and have a better society is whether or not you have a mom and a dad around. Would we agree that's an ideal? Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
And so what happened in 1964 is that 25% of black youth were raised by a single mom. Today, it's nearly 75%, about 70%. So that means that 1 in 4 black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, so I think I misjudged you at first. Like, when you brought up the 1350 stat, I had like just assumed that it was like inherently like eugenics based, kind of, you know. So, and that's where mine came from. Like, I think we are on the same page that like we know what the problem is, and that's what I mean. Like,
no,
the
and
education.
thank you for saying that, because I think we actually have a lot more in common in this country than the media would ever believe.
No, definitely, right? And like what my point was, I was trying to say is, I don't think that we're doing enough to help these black communities catch up. Whereas like they're underfunded and they're not, and they're over policed, and there's just these factors that are contributing to, like you said, these single parent households.
Yeah,
like,
so we're not going to agree on this. This is where we'll disagree, and that's okay. I have more of a view of Thomas Sowell on this, where he believes it's far more about culture, values, and worldview than stuff and over-policing. I believe there's not enough police in black neighborhoods. You're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? But I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion. Why is it that the single motherhood rate in black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
Why did it?
Yeah, so what caused black America to go from one of the strongest nuclear family communities in the country to now the weakest by far?
I can't answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. And again, it's hard to get up and have these conversations. Here's my opinion. My opinion is that, yes, there was some social welfare that subsidized single motherhood, which means it's easier to get cash from the government if you say you are single than if you are married. I think we can agree that's stupid. That shouldn't happen, right? But I would love your perspective on this. Do you think in black culture, getting married and staying with one woman for your entire life is elevated and celebrated?
No, not at all.
I think that's the problem.
I think the problem stems from a lack of education. I think these communities don't have. I don't think a lot of them have the proper education or learning from previous to realize what will lead them to a more successful future. I think that if we funded more education in these systems, then these men wouldn't be so focused on stuff like gang violence to get protection or money or
you have a
other
great
stuff like that, and then end up in prison and then end up with their child having a single mother.
Fair enough. So
sorry, I didn't.
No, it's great. Well. So there's a lot of examples that there's some merit to your argument, but it's more about the quality of education than the amount of money we spend on it.
Yeah.
Such as, that's why I'm a big proponent of school choice and educational vouchers and opposing the teacher unions. But the core is this, is that the number one predictor for a kid of any skin color, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, is whether or not dad is around.
Right.
And I look, as an outsider, albeit, at current black culture, right? From the athletes to the rap music to the music, I don't see the nuclear family elevated, nor is it an internal black cultural expectation. Now, I will ask some of the white individuals here in this audience, okay? If you guys got pregnant and all of a sudden you didn't even know who the father was around, how would your parents react? Not great, right? Yes? Unfortunately, in black America, this is kind of accepted. Would you agree?
I can't say. I grew up around a lot of white people, so I can't say.
All right, okay. So, but it is a fact that it is accepted, right? So that's the problem. The problem is that it's a cultural norm that has then turned into the cycle of poverty. The cycle of poverty can break very quickly if fathers stayed with the women they impregnate.
But most of these fathers aren't just leaving. A large majority of these fathers are ending up in prison. Like, this is
good point. Why do you go to prison?
Because you commit crimes.
Okay.
Because
yeah.
the prison system has been targeted against minorities.
Again, we're not going to agree here,
right,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's actually under-enforcement of the laws when it comes where there's, for example, only half of murders in Chicago get solved.
Right, but are they all black people, though?
Almost all of them, yeah. Like 80,
well,
80.
If they're not solved, how do we know that they're black people?
Well, because it's a black victim in a black neighborhood by a black gang. So it's like you can assume at a great approximation that in the west side of Chicago...
50% of the murders in Chicago that go unsolved are all black people.
Not all, no, I said 85%. But we don't know who the perp is. But again, if you have a black victim at 2 a.m. in a black neighborhood... It's reasonable to say that it was a black-on-black crime. 90% of murders after 2 a.m. in Chicago are black-on-black crimes. I'm from Chicago. Right. I happen to know it. Right? But like half of all murders in Chicago are unsolved, that means half of all murderers are walking free. So we have an under-enforcement of laws. We have the ladies here in this audience should know this. You know that there's over 600,000 rape kits in this country that have not even been opened or tested, which means that there are women who say that they've been raped, and their kits are not even put in the system. There are probably hundreds of thousands of rapists that walk free in this country.
Yeah, no, our system is
no. What I'm saying though, that's an under-enforcement of laws, though.
Yeah, because our system is terrible.
No, I know, but you said we have an over-enforcement. I don't think we have enough people in jail.
You don't think we have enough people?
No, like I said, half of all murderers walk free. We don't even know who they are.
Okay, but
makes sense.
Okay, and I sure, whatever. But I'm talking. I don't think that I don't think that black people are as more than 50% of exonerations from prison are black people. Like, a black person is more likely than any other race.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for watching. This is Charlie Cake. Yeah. This is Charlie Cake, and you guys know Charlie and his way of doing things. Now, I would like us to talk about the first guy. The first guy was just playing the victim game. He was actually playing the victim game. He was just saying that Charlie is twisting words and all that. We all know Charlie. Charlie would never come on the stage to twist word or try to twist his word in a certain way. That's not Charlie. Charlie is someone that didn't go to college, but when he spills out fat. Charlie is grounded intellectually. My problem with black people is that black people fail to understand that this racism we're talking about, they are actually the one that hammer on it all the time. I mean, back then when the black people were being sold out for slavery and all that, if we dig history very well, you come to understand that most of those black people actually sold their children for tobacco. I don't know. I'm just trying to fathom how are we going to stop talking and dwelling on this term called racism. This has really eaten deep into the fabric of this world, and it's not nice at all. You go out there because you're black, because you're white, and all that. I really don't know what to say, but I have said this countless times on my channel, and I keep saying it. I keep saying it all the time. We need to eradicate this racism. It's not going to lead us anywhere. It's not going to lead us anywhere. And thank God we have someone like Charlie. You guys, I don't have much to say. I just want to be brief with my reaction. So, but then there were a lot were being said in this video. So I need your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this video. If you haven't subscribed, don't want to hit the subscribe button. Subscribe, give us a huge thumbs up. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video.